And I do feel a little bit guilty because 6:30 at night is not late here. It's pretty late in Europe. And so thank you, Elizabeth, for attending remotely. Rebecca is also attending remotely from Colorado. So that's the other direction on time zones. For people who've been sending stuff into post, Rebecca has been wonderful about posting it. And she's the one who is sort of the conduit from, gosh, I think we need to get this online somehow. Dear Rebecca, how do we do that, to making it online? And then I saved Daniela for last. Daniela, oh my gosh, the program looks spectacular. Thank you for Daniela Calvetti. One of the things I love about this community is we all know each other by first name, but Daniela Calvetti, thank you for everything. And I'm going to thank all of the co-chairs for this meeting. So I don't think we need to introduce anybody there. And that is coming on another slide. Yes, I'm going to do all of them due justice. So here are some websites, and I think, Tim, are the slides going to be made available to everybody? I think they will be. Excellent. This is more just FYI so that we have this information for the future. The SIAM Engage, we have a lot of great plans. Some of them have come to fruition. The ones that have not come to fruition are usually my fault because I'm thinking, gosh, that's a great plan and I just need to work with folks. But that's where we're going to be posting a lot of the activities for the web, the group, and so on. So please keep an eye on that. The SIAM UQ website, we're trying to keep that as up to date as possible. There's a lot of great ideas and we're moving more and more toward this web-based everything. And that's an obvious statement. I don't need to make that to anybody. SIAM blogs, and then the suggestion form. Please take that seriously. Things that are going well, things that can be improved. And I'm especially interested in things that can be improved. This is an evolving, growing, vibrant SIAG. I'd like to see things that can be improved there, please. All right, some congratulations. We knew about the class of 2021. Habib was a fellow there. And it was just announced, about 2 weeks ago, that James Crowley and Human Huadi are fellows for this year. So congratulations. Yes, thank you. And I had meant to list, because we did not have the meeting 2 years ago, I did not get a chance to list those fellows, but we had, I think it was 4 fellows in, it would have been 2019. I didn't get the 2020 list, and 2 in 2018. So again, congratulations to our fellows. We're just incredibly proud of everything that they have contributed to this SIAG. All right. Here's some numbers from the first meeting was in Raleigh. We were talking about this earlier and trying to remember the meetings, and Daniela, your memory was better than mine on that, not surprisingly, but our history was roughly 506 meeting folks in Raleigh, pretty close in Savannah. Luzon, we had a very, very good attendance there. Garden Grove, California, very good attendance. We all know that despite the heroic efforts of the chairs, the organizing committee, 2020 happened. And this year we have 870 so far. That's a record. That's wonderful. 348 are physically here. This has been a very interesting experiment of the hybrid meeting. And just to let you know, and I'm going to be bragging about SIAM at several points, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tim and Suzanne, but I believe this is your first physical hybrid meeting in 2 years. And it has gone remarkably well. Thank you. I mean, gosh, that's just, we're all very happy to be here. They're the ones saying, we have to make this work, and you've made it work spectacularly. So here are the numbers. Those are probably still going up, but Tim got those to me today. We've got great attendance, and let's just keep pointing to the future on that. Okay, Daniela, here's where I get to thank everybody. So our committee this year was Daniela Calvetti, Heikki Hario. I don't know if Heikki's here tonight, and then Doug Nitschke. We always try and have an ASA representative on the committees, and I smile about Doug because he's ASA, but I think he keeps kind of gravitating towards SIAM as well. And that's a really, really good synergy, because uncertainty quantification is this beautiful synergy between applied mathematics, statistics, and disciplinary sciences. And having the statistics side on that, as we've had in such a strong sense, has just been critical and phenomenal. And then I would like to really thank the organizer, and this is Daniela, where we have to thank the committee. I can't give you all the details of what they went through on finding phenomenal plenary speakers, putting together this program, et cetera, but they've done a phenomenal job. So let me go ahead and just thank Mihai Anatesiu, Derek Bingham, Andre Christian, Julian Chung, who introduced one of our keynotes yesterday, Christopher Dravandi, Gianluigi Iacani, Peter Lawrence, Jessica Matthews, one of my former students. I was so proud when I saw her on there and feeling a little bit like maybe I was getting up in age. I'm not gonna say that too loud. Naoma Petra, Stefan Zane, Sebastian Reich, and Tanya Tervainen. This conference would not have happened without these people. And so I wanna just formally thank all of them. Oh my gosh. It's a little embarrassing because I get to get up here and brag about this stuff, and people are telling me, gosh, great job on the conference. And I quickly explain, this is the folks out there that I just talked about. Please thank them in person. So thank you for all of you for an incredible conference. We were introduced to the SIAM Early Career Prize today, and it was scalable Gaussian process. I need to learn to read the monitor down there, so I'm actually still facing you guys. Emulation, uncertainty, and uncertainty quantification. I shouldn't struggle over that phrase, UQ. It was Mengyang Yu gave a beautiful presentation this morning. And so this is one that we recognize. I started to say our future leaders, but in many cases, they are our leaders right now. And they're doing amazing work. I especially smiled about Meng Yang because I knew him as a graduate student, and he was phenomenal as a graduate student, and we see where he's come. So, and do try out his software. It's really good. So I'm not going to read that, but there we go. Okay, so we have some meetings coming up that are planned, and then I'm going to talk about some meetings that are coming up that are not yet planned. The annual meeting, that's coming up. So it's, let's see, July 11th through 15th. It's in Pittsburgh. Please plan on attending it. One of my very close friends, Sinchitsa Chonich, is one of the co-chairs. Edmund Chow is co-chair. We all know about the annual meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that we had a slide saying, make sure that's on your calendar. We have other meetings coming as well, but make sure that's on your calendar, please. And just a little bit more about it. It's held jointly with the SIAM Conference on Applied Mathematics Education. And I'm going to talk a little more about where we're headed on some of that in a little bit. SIAM Conference on Life Sciences and the SIAM Conference on Mathematics at Planet Earth. So there's some tracks, sessions by the SIAGs. Registration deadline is coming up. So June 13th, sort of feels like T equals infinity as we get out of classes, but it's not T equals infinity. So please make sure that you're ready on that. Travel fund applications, those were, yeah, the 11th. So please make sure that's on your calendar. And then I got this one just today from Tim. The SIAM Career Fair is next Wednesday, April 20th, 11 to 5 p.m. I believe we just got email about this from SIAM this afternoon. And so please encourage your job seekers to register for free. Here's the website. If you have an opening, think about the booth applications, and we can see a lot of previous participants. I don't need to mention names like Amazon and the Boeing Company and MathWorks and Los Alamos and ... These are really high profile. We have a number of young people attending the conference, and gosh, I mean, it's opened us too, but hopefully we're not, some of the more senior folks aren't looking for jobs, but please put this on your agenda for your young people, your students, your postdocs, people who might be looking for jobs. This is a really big deal. And again, the slides will be available, and we got email about that this afternoon. This is very widely disseminated. So please make sure that's on your agenda. For those of us of a certain age, Gene Golub does not need an introduction. We all knew him. He was bigger than life. He was amazing. And we all know about the Gene Golub SIAM Summer School. It's August 1st through 12th. It's in Italy. And here's some of the topics. Introduction to Quantitative Risk Management Finance. funny thing is I'm supposed to be reading down front, but my reading glasses don't work that far, that direction. So that's why I'm reading over on the side. Sorry about that. Risk management and finance, energy and commodity markets, machine learning and financial technology, mean field games. These are amazing opportunities for students and postdocs and more senior people. So please make sure that's on your agenda. Just an FYI. Okay, future conferences. There's one in particular that I wanted to kind of chat about a little bit with a group, which would be this one. 2 years from now, we will be having a even more in-person conference. We have not decided on a location. We talked about it at lunch today, and we need to get feedback from you. So please let us know thoughts on that. You know, I showed where the previous ones have been. Raleigh, Savannah, Lausanne, here, California, etc. Please send us suggestions. This model of alternating between the United States and Europe, we wanted to do that last time with Munich, and unfortunately, things way beyond our control happened, but send us suggestions. Suzanne talked about this, we should have a timeline. I forgot to put a timeline, but please send them soon. Let us know. And criterion are, we want to have some place that we have centrally located, expertise in UQ, which I hope is a very wide range. It's really good having a center that organizes conferences involved on this. We were supposed to be involved with the universities in Munich, which would have been great, but in Lausanne, we had the centers that were made that facilitated. We've talked about some other possibilities, but please send us suggestions. Okay, we obviously don't have the dates, but roughly 2 years from now. As we think about that, it's always kind of nice to think about where would the weather be good in March and April. That's something to weigh in, but please send us suggestions. We're looking at that. And on another note, I don't have slides about this, but fairly soon I'm going to be rotating off of this, as are the rest of the folks, which means new folks need to be rotating on. Please be thinking about that as well. I'm talking with various individuals, you know, who you kind of think about, gosh, UQ and this community and where you'd like this to go, but please be thinking about that. There's a nomination form. We can make this more official, but these are future conferences, our future conference, and please be thinking about that. Okay, probably preaching to the choir. I embarrassingly earlier today did not have the green thing at the bottom of my name tag, and was walking with a couple of the SIAM folks, Tim and Suzanne, and Tim very kindly gave me, I am a SIAM member. I am, and have been for a very long time. Please encourage this. It includes a lot, and I don't think I really need to talk about all of this, but SIAM News, 30% off SIAM books. We've all been looking out with Elizabeth Greenspan at the SIAM books. You get the vote. We all are familiar with this. The other one that I would really point to is the student chapters. The student chapters, this sounds so very cliche, but they're the members of the future. Well, they're the members of now, they're the leaders of the future. And I look at our student chapter and I'm so proud of them. I'm one of their I guess, mentors or faculty facilitators. I pretty much just get out of their way. They have great ideas. And if you have student chapters, one of the things that I think everybody is doing is saying, the pandemic has been horrific, but we have learned ways to take advantage of it. And remote bringing in speakers and remote activities may be one of the things that student chapters can leverage to their benefit. And so this is something that when I look at NC State, and I've talked with colleagues, doing things remotely with your student chapters is a really good way for them to meet a lot of people and be able to get exposure to folks that they might not have before. So please think about, in addition to the benefits of SIAM membership, encouraging the student chapters. And we have a very large number of both in-person and remote student participants here, which is great. Please try to get to their talks. I know about some of the ones that I've seen and I'm going to, and gosh, the talks are really good, to the point where I watch their talks and I think about talks I gave when I was a graduate student, and they're not in the same category, but that applies for a whole bunch of things. Okay, so that's sort of some general things. What I want to do is give you a kind of a status of the SIAG and point to some of the directions I see as growth directions, and then get feedback from all of you. So We're supposed to have notes on this. I think what I'll do is go into the recording. The slides provide a really fantastic start, but any suggestions, if you can get those to me, either we can do this verbally or we can do it written. I can get notes, but this is an evolving, growing SIAG, and we want it to keep improving. And you are the SIAG, so I wanted to get your feedback. So here are some of the stuff as of the end of the year. Some of it's current, some of it we won't be able to. So as SIAGs go, we're kind of right in the middle. I think we're in a really good position. We've got 700 attendees. I've got it on the next slide. I don't remember exactly, but I think this is one where we can continue to grow. And we've got it broken down by student and non-student. I can't emphasize enough how important I think the student memberships are on this. They are the SIAM of the future, and that's where it's growing. And I hear so many good ideas coming from them saying, gosh, can we bring in this government lab person, or can we bring in this industry? Now, one area that we talked about at lunch that I think we can continue growing on, but we need all of your help, is industry. And we'll kind of come back on that one. That one is hard, but there's a lot of areas where I think we can grow, and we'll talk more about that. But we're right in the middle. I think we're in very good shape, but let's keep pushing upward. All right, so here are memberships. And again, these things are always a little tricky to read, but the total is, young people, you'll recognize these in many years are called reading glasses. Means you can't get far enough back from the computer, 741. There's always these ups and downs, but I think we're at a very good level, but I think we can continue expanding our participants. And one of them is industry. So for example, at lunch today, we talked about, and uncertainty quantification, sensitivity analysis now becoming ubiquitous in a lot of industry fields, et cetera. So ones that we talked about at lunch that I personally have been involved with are nuclear engineering, next generation light water reactors. I've been involved with that for about 12 years. When I started, I didn't realize that roughly 20% of the electricity in this country comes from nuclear reactors, yet we hadn't built a new one since 1979 until a few years ago. And there's a huge push on making sure we have quantified uncertainties and risk analysis. That one's huge. Any of the energy sector is vibrant, it's growing, it's exciting, it's huge. We talked about some of the insurance, financial, everything. The topics I just mentioned for the Gene Golub School, gosh, they're just huge. And so this is one where I think it makes the most sense, but I'm very open to suggestion. And I'd love to kind of have just general discussion at the end of this about where we can go on that, but use your personal contacts. I'm going to point to Daniela, and she had a number of contacts where these might be places to start getting industry involved. I've worked with Westinghouse on the nuclear side. For those who've worked on financial parts, fantastic. Things like the automotive, the construction industries, please use your own contacts. And then when I talk with my European contacts, gosh, I rely on you. Let's keep building the industry side of that. We have a really strong government laboratory presence. And that's one that I think we can continue to keep building on. But boy, that one I'm really proud of. It's leading a lot of this SIAG. It's very, very strong. Essentially, all of the government labs are providing very, very strong leadership roles here. So that one, I think we can continue to grow, but specifically industry, I'd love to keep bringing that in and just pointing out advantages to them. And things that we pointed to Westinghouse, for example, was, boy, you've got access to students, you've got access to all of this academic, you've got access to all of these resources, and we can maybe save you money. And these are things to point out to the industry contacts. So let's keep building on these numbers. All right, so a little bit more, and Tim and Nicole did fantastic. I keep saying we built these slides. I didn't make any of them. I added to one. There's roughly our numbers. I think that's really healthy. I love seeing this many students. Let's keep building all of it. So I think that percentages are great. Let's just keep making the circle bigger. And I'm pretty sure that's not how this graphic works, but it does tonight. Okay, and then here is some of the demographics between the US and non-US. Gosh, again, they look really, really strong. And I'd like to just keep growing all of them. One that I think, and we've talked about this in the past, is in the non-US, keep expanding what we are targeting there. We have a tremendously strong European presence. We have very strong in Asia in certain areas. Let's just keep building that. And I'm open to all suggestions, but let's just keep growing this, moving it into areas where, because again, UQ is so ubiquitous now. Everybody recognizes you've got to do this. I mean, gosh, if you don't write a grant proposal that doesn't have the word uncertainty quantification, may not go so well. So let's keep growing these numbers. And here is some of the membership by gender and so on. So these are, I think, good numbers that we can improve on. So I look at, with our students, what's that? Yeah, we can improve on these. We can improve on these. No, yeah, we should. And when I look at the numbers, I would have guessed the students would have been higher on some of the demographics here, but let's keep improving on this. So please, and that's one that we, as in the community, let's keep building on this. All right, so here is what I've been kind of talking about on membership. Academia is by far the biggest. It's roughly 2/3. Government, laboratory, large. Industry, I think we can keep building on. Government, gosh, I need your help on that one. And then industry, we've talked about. One that I personally would love to keep seeing built on, and let's see, I don't think Helen Moore is here tonight, but I'm going to point to her, is biomedical. Okay, Helen, I'm going to point to you on this one because I've got a little bit on this slide. Helen brought me into some of the pharmacokinetic and the biomedical about 2 years ago, roughly. And I am incredibly grateful because I've learned an unbelievable amount, and I think this is a huge growth area. And this is one at the end that I'm going to point to where I think this community can keep starting to show our successes. We've seen, for example, during Karen's plenary talk today, she mentioned digital twins. They have the virtual populations. I think this community has a huge role here. Now, some of that falls into industry, some of it falls under government laboratory, lots of it falls under academic, but that's an area that I personally am very, very interested in. I'm incredibly grateful to Helen for bringing me in on this. And I think as a community, let's keep building. I was interested in this one. By far the biggest is mathematics, yet when I talk about uncertainty quantification, I always say this incredible synergy between mathematics, statistics, engineering, and disciplinary sciences. And so we are certainly growing more in all of these areas. I would love to see kind of continued growth in statistics, and we've talked with a number of people. That's where we have folks like Doug Nitschke and the ASA liaisons that have been invaluable. We've had conferences and programs. When SAMHSA was still in existence and vibrant, we had a program on uncertainty quantification, mathematical and statistical. And it was half and half of how do these two really come together, because they're certainly synergistic, but they bring different perspectives and sometimes different objectives. And so this is one that I think we can continue to grow. We've got, I'm kind of preaching to the choir on the mathematics, but computer science, for example, machine learning, that's going to be an area that I think we continue to grow very heavily on. Engineering, not surprisingly, that one we're doing a lot of the applications, but a lot of the physical sciences, I think we can continue to grow on. For example, biology, chemistry, physics, we have to just keep expanding as best we can. And I'll point to the biomedical. That one I personally, I think is a huge growth area. But the more I build my research into the biology, gosh, I did physics and materials for most of my career, and that was wonderful and interesting and hard, but physical laws are pretty well behaved in many cases. And then you get to biology and things that are less well behaved, and then you get to biomedical and they're certainly less well behaved, and so on. And the less well behaved and the more nonlinear and the more the delays, the more the uncertainties, the more the role of uncertainty quantification. And things like model discrepancy are just ubiquitous. So I'd love, with the community's help and for the community, keep growing in those areas. All right, we're basically out of slides, and I just wanted to have a lot of time for discussion, but two things I wanted to point to under kind of other directions are, and I already mentioned this, there's been a very increased SIAM collaboration, thanks to Helen, on this work with pharmacokinetics broadly, biological models. This has been this collaboration with the International Society for Pharmacokinetics, or ISOP. I meant to have the O lowercase, sorry about that. And I think there's a huge, huge role for our community there. And some of the places I look at for that are sensitivity analysis. We've got folks who are world leaders in sensitivity analysis, and what they're looking at are problems where we can have easily 15 to 20 to 30 to 150 states, huge numbers of parameters, sometimes an order of magnitude more than that. And when you start talking about optimization, it's really difficult to even talk about optimization over this parameter space because you have it's so high dimensional in parameters, and it's so hard to map your parameter space. So questions that they have been introducing us to are, how do we do identifiability analysis on these high dimensional problems? Can we determine those parameters that we just fix for uncertainty quantification later on, the usual thing that we do? Can we somehow map out the parameter space so that we know that in this region, this set of parameters are very, very important or active. In this region, still physically viable, another set are very important. And is there some kind of a nonlinear mapping between those that we can exploit? Other questions that we are starting to get toward are, now that we've maybe isolated a set of identifiable parameters, can we actually start to do some uncertainty quantification on this? Boy, can we do some Bayesian inference? We've seen some beautiful talks on state-of-the-art Bayesian. Can we propagate? And then one of the areas that I think, and I'm going to step back a little about this, we had a program not too many years ago on SAMC, and we said, gosh, it's been something like 10 years since the first uncertainty quantification. We should talk about model discrepancy. And that's always the kind of the elephant in the room of how do we deal with model discrepancy or uncertain model form. And at that last SAMC meeting, we realized we're going to have another meeting on that in 10 years and another meeting on that in 10 years. And that one's a really big, hard problem. And that one comes up hugely in these pharmacokinetic problems. You've got nonlinear. When I first got into it, I thought, oh, they're ordinary differential equations. That'll make it a little bit easier. And I guess in ways it does, but then you get into really nonlinear dynamics, delays. I think it's wide open, and then model discrepancy. And a number of people in this room know Leonard Smith. He's got a really nice paper in which he compares the butterfly effect, which we're all familiar with uncertainty in initial conditions, and what he calls the hawk moth effect, which just dwarfs the butterfly effect. The hawk moth effect is model discrepancy. And so there's a huge amount of work in this community of, can we get ways to talk about model discrepancy in these pharmacokinetic and any bio application? We have to address that. It's the hawk moth effect. It's going to overwhelm a lot of our work. Another area that, and again, I'm just pointing to directions I see, and then I want to open this up for discussion for the remainder, and that may take another glass of wine. I realize that's totally fine. And I just totally derailed my thought when I was thinking about the glass of wine part of that. Sorry about that. Oh, virtual populations. And again, we all know Karen's work on digital twins and why that's so incredibly important, and that's incredibly important in the nuclear industry. Virtual populations are incredibly important. There are similarities and parallels, but there's also differences. And this is a huge area in the pharmacokinetic community right now, federal FDA, Food and Drug Administration, et cetera. And kind of the goal on that, where I think our community can play a huge role, is saying, what they'll do is they'll say, can we use a virtual population to do a lot of our testing initially? And there's a number of advantages of that. It's safe. You're doing mathematical models. It's one where it's easier to get a really broad range of demographics, which my understanding is can be an issue in physical testing. You have to have volunteers, and the volunteers may come from a certain demographic that is not totally representative of your population. in virtual populations, you can address this. It's much more fiscally efficient. And so there's all these advantages that I think our community, so where does uncertainty quantification sensitivity analysis play a role? We have to tell how much we trust this virtual population. We have to be able to say, here's our predictions with quantified uncertainties. We're going to have to be doing out of data and extrapolatory predictions. How much do we trust them? And where do we totally break down? How do they fall into the validation regimes? Where does this break down? And then once they get to the point where they're saying, we've got some really viable options, then they would take those to the actual tests. So this is one that I want to point to on other businesses, one area, and I want to open up again for discussion from this group, and if we can monitor online for the other groups. The other one, which I am really excited because we personally, as some of our group have participated in, is there's an increased SIAM presence in the joint math meetings, the JMM. And I would love to see that encouraged as well. It's a way for our community and our SIAG to keep expanding and helping expand the education of our students, our next generation, and in some cases, our instructors. I've got some of the feedback I got from JMM was from instructors saying, oh, wow, this stuff I think we can bring into the classroom. And that is so exciting. So those are two of the areas that I personally have been really excited about and been involved within over the last couple of years. We've seen an awful lot from this community of areas where we're growing, but I wanted to then open it up to the community for other areas of growth. So I believe, yeah, there's the contacts. You guys know how to find all of us. Please do. But I wanted to open up the meeting at this point to discussion. Areas of growth, areas of improvement. One of the things that friends trust friends on is when they are honest about, here's some things that we need to improve. And again, this is being recorded. We'll try and make sure that we get all of this into documents. One of the things that my task for the next month is a renewal of our SIAG charter. That's officially due somewhere around the May 15th. I'm putting that together. And one of the things I would like to include in that charter are suggestions from the community about directions that we are planning to try and go in the next 2 years to 6 years to 10 years to, I was about to say 50 years, but maybe let's go 10 years to start with, 20, something like that. All right, so let's open up for questions from the community. We've got 2 microphones. I think they're both active. It's a small enough group, but we are online, so we probably should use the microphones, but please, I'd love to hear suggestions. Thank you, first volunteer. Oh my gosh. So in my classes, I've told some of you this, I have 2 sets of criteria, 5-second rule. And I sort of joked about that this morning. That's not how long something falls on the floor before you can still eat it. It's how long I wait before when I ask a question before going on, because we usually go too fast. And hero points. And hero points are when you have a suggestion or a question and you realize that the others may also, but you're brave enough to ask it and it makes everybody else brave enough. So thank you. I'd love to hear your suggestions.
Hi, this is Ruda from Duke University. We met at NC State, but just one question. I think it would be more engaging if there are, I know at the SIAM in general, there are no student paper competitions or poster competitions, but is it possible like for UQ as an activity group to propose this kind of events? I think they will improve engagement. I don't know how much actual effort is there for organizing those, but I think this area is lacking. I mean, it's going to be exciting. We not only have early career awards, those major awards, but student awards, little things help. Yeah.
Ruda, and I'm going to repeat that because I hope that the people online are hearing all of this, but I'm going to repeat it just in case they hear this microphone or not. But the question suggestion was, is it possible to include and start having student awards? I personally think it's a great idea. And as you asked that, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, we need to focus on that. I'm part of other meetings, and that's certainly a very big part of it. So let's open up. Suzanne, you might have feedback on that, but I think that would be a fantastic idea.
And wouldn't it be great if we had a company to fund those awards?
Yeah.
Part of our outreach, sponsorship level trainings at conferences. conferences, but also actually funding a student award. And you mentioned poster competition is what we were talking about.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again, just to make sure for the people online, but the suggestion was that this is an area where probably industrial support might make the most sense. I was about to say government laboratory, that might not make as much sense, but industrial support might. And this is a model that in other, heaven forbid, if I go to meetings in other organizations, occasionally I have seen, but that's a model that they would use. It would be the Honda Award for Student Excellence.
And even I think there are other SIAGs who even have little prizes or awards for the poster competitions or things like that.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. My gosh, I was just sort of embarrassed when you asked it. They thought, yeah, we haven't done that.
I just have a quick comment on the suggestion. I think for student prizes, you really don't need much money or funding. I mean, little bits of cash prize is, I mean, maybe none. Just giving them a piece of paper, and they will come. I think it's pretty much that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't have to be huge. It's the recognition that is so paramount. Thank you. That is a fantastic suggestion. And again, as you were asking, I thought, oh my gosh, we are probably overdue on doing that. One thing I would point out, and then let me come back to you, is encourage your students to apply for the student travel awards. That is something that SIAM, I think through probably NSF sponsorship, has been very kind of. Yeah, let me turn it over to you, Suzanne. Yeah.
Still apply. Applying till next Monday, so encourage your students to apply or encourage your students to apply. And funding for the student travel award comes from the SIAM operation budget. It comes from some from National Science Foundation,
yeah,
and some comes from royalties from the authors of some of our SIAM books.
Good.
We should always remember that part as well.
And before I go on, let me make an introduction because I'm not sure everybody knows Suzanne Weeks. This is Suzanne Weeks, who is the executive director of SIAM and has been absolutely wonderful. But if you haven't met her, thank you for being here. And let me just share an anecdote about the student travel awards. So a lot of departments, at least when I speak to mine, can give something like maybe $500 to a student, which covers part of travel, but certainly not all of it. I had one of my students apply for a travel award, and I can't describe how excited she was when she got email from SIAM saying, oh my gosh, I got a travel award. I can physically attend. She just lit up on it. So take advantage, apply through next week on the others. It looks like you had a suggestion, please.
Yes, hi, thanks. Michael Shields from Johns Hopkins University. Has the SIAG ever considered doing subcommittees? So you mentioned trying to growth opportunities in different sectors in healthcare or finance or whatever. If you have subcommittees that are focused on these areas, they can really concentrate and focus on growth in those particular areas.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great idea. And in many ways, it's probably the idea that makes by far the most sense. The entire SIAG should not be trying to grow into pharmacokinetics, for example. That should be the people. Well, I'm going to volunteer Helen to help lead that one. Sorry. But I think having those subcommittees and a place where we could probably also start on that is the webpage, Engage, some of these things. And part of I had all these grand plans and then just kind of wondering where the last couple of years went as I was doing those. But that may be also a place where we can start. But I think subcommittees is a natural way to do that. And perhaps the only really natural way. We can't all be experts in everything. It's exciting learning new fields, but I think that's a great suggestion. Other thoughts? Yes, Catherine, thank you.
Sorry, this isn't really a suggestion. It's just more something for the minutes, really. So we were talking about student prizes before, and I just wanted to flag up that in 2020, when our meeting, yes, was unfortunately cancelled, we did have an early career prize winner who unfortunately never got the opportunity to present their work. And I just thought that that should be acknowledged.
That's right. Can you,
Bjorn Sprunk.
is Bjorn struck that?
Apologies for my pronunciation.
Yeah, no, and they
I
never,
thought maybe just people weren't aware of that, and people are new. So obviously, I just wanted to sort of, if he's listening or anybody who knows him is listening, I just wanted to apologize, having been part of the organizing committee last time, that he never got the opportunity to do that.
yeah, no. And thank you for reminding us of that, because there were a couple of other things that I wanted to remind from that meeting. I had the list of some of the fellows, but I didn't have all of them. That was listed, but I did not get the early career prize winner. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a way that we can still recognize that. We need to work on that. Thank you. Other suggestions from these are great. Again, I'm just the guy up front asking for questions. You're the ones doing the work and all of this. Other thoughts? The other thing I do in my classes is I call on people. I've had colleagues at conferences say that's a bad form in a conference or at a group like this. So I'll try not to, but please, again, we're among friends. These have been great suggestions. I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable voicing them. Okay, yeah, Amy, please. Oh gosh, Tim, yeah, if you could take the mic, that's even better.
It's definitely not a suggestion. I'm truly alarmed by the statistics on women.
Yeah.
And as a statistician, by the statistics on statisticians. I think I don't have a suggestion about how to fix any of that or
Yeah.
what to do, but it's really striking.
No, I agree. And when I looked at the thing, I didn't have reading glasses on, and then you started pointing out, and you're absolutely right. I don't have suggestions. I know that in academia, we discuss this a lot, and we always have these things like it's a long-term objective, and that rings somewhat hollow. And we try and develop activities that we think will help, and I certainly hope they do. Thank you all for pointing that out when I probably went too quickly over that slide. We definitely need to keep working on that. I was also surprised by the demographics on women, but well, and statistics. And part of it, and I may be wrong about this, but I get the sense that the UQ numbers in statistics may be smaller. And so there's a high percentage, but because of the overall numbers, we may be getting a lower percentage total. I don't know the answer on that. But that's something that, for example, when Jim Berger and I and Bruce and many people were doing the second SAMC program on uncertainty quantification, mathematics and statistics, we really were trying to encourage the number of statistics. And I think in a local, in time and sense way we did, but I don't know if what it did for long term. Yeah, Daniela. And let's go with the microphone, please. I'm gonna, yeah.
I think, because I was actually, my heart stopped a little bit, and I was not pleased. And I'm using good language here. Okay. So I was talking with Tim right now, and that was a little more encouraging, because if we're looking at the time series of membership, he's telling me that if we show the number of the ratio of male to female over the ages, the student population is much more, female heavy than the overall population. So let's hope that we are having a correction, right, to this gender discrepancy with a new generation coming in with many more. Well, in this room, you say there is more female representation than that chart,
showed. Yeah,
that horrible chart would show. So, and the tendency is that when people become SIAM members, they remain SIAM members. So let's hope that we retain. It's important to recruit and retain. Retain is a big, it's a big problem. And I think in some ways, this is an eye opener, and
I agree.
There is some hope, but we shouldn't just say, oh yeah, it's good.
No, and
I think we need to be active in this activity group and make sure that female and statisticians understand what the uncertainty quantification is, because I don't know what the CS is, and I'm a militant computational science, and I'm used to conferences where very few women, but those numbers were,
They were,
above the
they were way too low. And I think what might help, and Tim, I don't know if this is something that you can get for the next meeting, but this evolution over time, if we could break that down a little bit more by some of those numbers, it might help. I think that's what you're alluding to, Daniela, is trying to say, gosh, we've got these numbers where we're looking at the student members and so on. Could we break them down a little more?
Yeah, we could get that for you.
Still, this is not, this is some hope.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that the job is done.
Oh, no.
I think in some way when the organizing committee and the co-chairs decided on the invited talks, we just wanted to make sure that pretty much the demographics of the population and what we see in our classes was represented in the, in the invited speakers.
Yeah. And you did a beautiful job of that.
I think by leading by example
Mhm.
makes a lot of.
I agree. And this is one that, again, we've had these discussions in our departments, in our colleges, and our universities, and we all recognize the issues. Boy, I don't think any of us has the magic answer. We just have to keep recognizing that this is an issue and trying to address it in as many ways as we can. And again, I look at the student populations and I am encouraged there. One of the things we have to do is make sure that just keeps filtering up into the other levels. And so that one, I have thought a lot more about from the kind of academic perspective, because it's so important and there. I don't know what to say. And Amy, maybe the others, about continuing to engage the statistics, because in many ways that's so central. And I know that some of the local ways we've tried to address that, but I'd like to hear more thoughts there.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about the statisticians. They have lots of problems. But does SIAM ever do a roadshow? I mean, a traveling posse of, say, our female president of SIAM, the director of the board, and senior women who belong to the interest group, going to different institutions to talk about the SIAG or what UQ is, that sort of thing. I mean, it would take, of course, money because that's travel,
Mhm.
but I'm thinking about my institution, which is full of engineers and people who are really interested in UQ. And it's kind of a diverse culture of UQ because it's both engineering and science.
Right.
And, some group of people who are not the people who are constantly yammering about UQ to those people every day would, maybe that would attract some attention.
Suzanne, I think any ideas are good ideas. I'd love to keep hearing this explored. I don't know of such a model. I don't, but what are your thoughts?
Hi, everyone. And like you, I like these ideas. So thanks for bringing these ideas forward, right? We certainly have a SIAM visiting lecturer program where we have people from industry who are willing and able to give talks at universities, right? People from industry. And that's a fine idea too. Maybe, I don't know if it's just for UQ but whatever sort of roadshow, I'd love to hear more and send those suggestions to us. Why not?
I mean, in some senses, why I'm quiet up here is I'm thinking on the academic side, UQ is one of those things that a lot of folks don't start to hear about until graduate school or beyond. And it's something that some of our undergraduates are getting exposed to through our classes, but it's something that you also really want to keep exposing people to as early as you can. And so that's why as I was listening to what I think are fantastic ideas, that's one where, and this is where when we look at diversity in a lot of forms, we keep thinking, how do we go to undergraduates? How do we get to the high schools? How do we start introducing? And when I look at some of the high schools that we're recruiting a lot of our undergrads from, they're getting really good exposure to statistics. I knew no statistics as an undergraduate. I'd never seen it in high school. They're getting a lot of exposure there, but they're not getting exposure to some of the opportunities. That's one that we may want to keep thinking of bringing this to the undergrads and possibly to some of the high schools. And that's where at the university level, we're trying to start focusing a lot of efforts. And for this topic, that may be one thought. And this is going to be a long work in progress, but it's a really important one. But yeah, the roadshow, that's one let's think about. I don't know. Amy, we just need to keep a mic near you. You've got great ideas.
I'm a talker, I'm sorry. We've had you come visit us. We've had Catherine come visit us. We've had various people in the UQ domain come, but that's not the same
I know.
as SIAM sending a group or a representative of a professional society. That's different.
Yeah. I totally agree.
One thing that other organizations have done is explicitly specify or assign a diversity chair, right? So you look at the American Society of Civil Engineers, for example, one of the things that they've done over the past few years is they've assigned a diversity chair whose role within the organization is to try to promote diversity and inclusion and the role of women and underrepresented minorities. We might think of something like that, whether it's at the SIAG level or even higher, or all up and down the ladder. I think it could be a good thing.
And that one I look at, and again, you're very close to Suzanne with the mic. I would love to see this at the SIAG, but I'd also even perhaps more like to see it at the SIAM level. And so that that one, I think we need to have as much of the SIAM focus as we can. But you're right. This is also mirroring what we're seeing in academia in a lot of our colleges, is a very, very strong and active diversity committee. Let's think about that.
So we do have, he just finished his first year, a vice president for equity, diversity, and inclusion at SIAM. So
Okay.
that's on the higher governance level, right? A
Okay,
vice
okay,
president.
great.
But I've not seen anything at the SIAG level.
Okay, Danielle, I think you had a thought. What's that?
Am I now getting long life?
Yeah, so Suzanne, what I'm gonna have to do is go back to the recording and try and get some notes, I think.
I've been at women at conferences. I was at the conference
know.
in Berkeley many years ago, Women in Imaging. It was before, I don't know why women had to be, pretty much brought up to par, but it was before the conference on imaging. And there were a lot of female participants there, a lot of students, younger. And there was a really nice atmosphere where people did not feel, intimidated. And the dynamics was very different. I've been at Women in Inverse Problems, workshops.
Yes.
And so I think if you have a problem attracting and retaining some demographics, and and I've been looking every morning here at the faces and at the looks of people, and I've been actually commenting to several people of how many few female there were compared to male. And I was wondering if the pandemic and the fact that if you have a kid sick, usually the mother is the one who stays at home, is stuck at home, And so maybe SIAM should think about organizing some of these, let's say, events where, you're growing, you're growing a demographic which is not naturally coming to a particular activity group, and making people feel comfortable. People sometimes, if you're different, and there are studies on this. I've been going through a lot of training because, first I was chair for 6 years, so I did it, and then I keep doing this. I think it's very interesting. If you're different and if you ask questions, people will think that you feel singled out, maybe other people don't, and you refrain from asking questions, and being of a different gender, of a different look, of a different skin, sometimes will single you out. It's difficult to hide. So there is a study on avatars and how the communication is easier. So I think if SIAM wants to somehow bring up to the comfort level where people can go in a wider community and feel, strong and comfortable, maybe we should start organizing some of these events, which are going to be virtually integrated, from senior women to, graduate students. And I think all of us who are now being protected by UNESCO, some, disappearing varieties. So sometimes my female students say that they kind of have projected how I could make it, so they would be able to make it. So maybe creating some of these environments, in particular in the activity groups like this one, where the demographics of the group does not reflect the demographics of the population. There are more female enrolled in engineering programs right now than there are male students in the US. And the numbers that we're seeing is not.
They don't reflect.
It's not
that.
good.
No.
So that's one thing that one can think. Because I mean, many mid-career female, they will say that there was a person with whom they went to lunch, whom they had direct contact with. They were able to talk about life choices that they say they still go through gender lines, which made a difference, made them feel like they could have a career in that particular field. So that's.
No, I think all of these are incredibly important, good suggestions. Anything we can do on the SIAG level, the SIAM level, we have to. Suzanne, you were checking online. I hadn't even. Okay, yeah, that's why she ran back, because we've also got 2 sets of online participants. I wanted to make sure that they were getting feedback to us. And Tim, you were probably doing the same thing. Thank you. Catherine, yes, you've got the mic. Sorry, now I see the mic.
Sorry, forgot what I was going to say there. So earlier you were talking about the fact that it's sort of an inclusion issue as well, and the fact that most of us don't usually learn about UQ until graduate level, you said. And I was thinking about, hasn't the pandemic and the fact that uncertainty has affected pretty much everybody on the planet given us sort of ample material now to start to be able to communicate uncertainty to, younger children and school children.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that I'm sure everybody else here has been sort of incorporating more discussion about uncertainty in every course they teach, even if it isn't on UQ. But it surprises me that we are the uncertainty quantification activity group, and there really has been very little discussion about all the uncertainty that we've been living with over the last 2 years. So, I mean, it's not that I want everything to be about COVID, but doesn't that, talking about roadshows and new sorts of initiatives, but isn't COVID and pandemics now
No, you're absolutely right.
thing that
And
we can use to start informing and educating and developing new initiatives, at least as a starting point, even if we're not all epidemiologists.
what's your observation? No, you're absolutely right. And I think several of us have sort of thought about that and perhaps come to this conclusion that uncertainty quantification, when it's dealing with things like a pandemic or some of the world situations we're dealing with right now, is really, really hard. And a lot of it, and I'll point to myself, have looked at uncertainty quantification for, oh gosh, physical and engineering systems where things were hard, but not nearly as personal or as affecting a population or humanity. And this is really hard. I would love for this community to keep thinking about how can we take what we know as a community and make even tiny epsilon steps toward improving how we convey that to the scientific community, but also just convey it to policymakers and so on. I think it's a really, really important observation. Boy, it's a really hard observation because I've joked in my own life. I said, uncertainty quantification is hard, but when it applies to your own life, It's really, really hard. And what we've dealt with for the last 2 years has applied to humanity. And anything, I totally agree, and I'm searching for the right words and I'm not finding them up here, that anything we can do as a community to try and help in any sense, and again, even epsilon senses would be a huge service. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because we've talked individually. I don't think I've ever talked in a group like this about that. And I've talked one-on-one about it, and we've said, gosh, yeah, none of my theorems apply here. We're totally unknown. But as a community, we have learned to deal with statistical uncertainties and to realize that certain point events are not indicative of a long-term trend. And we do have that experience. And you're absolutely right. And I think it would help our community and, again, just a huge facet of society if we can start to convey that in whatever sense we can. I'm open to suggestions. Great observation. I don't have a quick answer other than to think it would be a huge service if we could. And as a community, I think we need to try. This has been an amazing discussion. And I did not do justice to the first part of this presentation. I feel like, and you guys have done serious justice to the discussion. So what I will be doing is going through the recording and taking notes on this. I don't think we had anybody physically taking notes, but if somebody did, please let me know. That would be wonderful. But I will be going through the recording and taking notes. It's discussions like this why I love this community. It's just, I've explained to so many people that this community is folks who I have the highest scientific regard for, but also the highest personal regard. And it's discussions like this on difficult topics, which they are, that we need to address, that I think we all move forward immensely. So anything else that you would bring up, because you are the ones who have made this meeting? 5 seconds is a long time to wait. Anyway, all right. Well, we're at 7:37. Thank you all for an amazing discussion, a necessary discussion, a first step in many discussions. This is one where I said we need to talk about the plans for the next 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. This is one where these plans need to go for at least the next 10 years. So let's continue it. Thank you all very, very much. I'm incredibly honored to be the one who gets to be up here having you make suggestions for your SIAG. So let's go ahead and call it a night there, I think. Thank you again, everybody who's made this meeting so successful. And I'm looking so forward to the next 2 days. So let's go ahead and have a good evening, and thank you.